Greetings, Hempster. Thank you for tuning in to another hemp episode of Hemp Aware Radio. If you have a hemp company and you need help getting more traffic and sales, or if you're wanting to redesign your website, and especially if you want to start getting seen with masterful branding, graphic, and web design services, then feel free to reach out to us on hempaware.com or schedule a call with us so we can help you make your goals hempin'. This is Tyler Hemp here, your hemp entrepreneurial host, as usual, here to empower and hemp-educate your hemposphere. It is a mouthful, but I can get through it. I've been saying these empowering words for many years. Why? Because it's for our food, it's for our homes, it's for our clothing and energy and healing and plastics and paper and fuel and so much more. And so in the spirit of raising your hemp awareness, you're about to experience an insightful conversation with myself and Ryan Doherty of HempVentures.org. I do that. Ryan is an intelligent, tenacious hemp entrepreneur that has been working in the hemp fiber sector of all places, which I think is just such a crucial place to be operating. And he's actually the CEO of HempVentures, but he's worked with other hemp companies like Sunstrain, and has been offering consulting to other processing firms, and is actually currently working with the U.S. Hemp Building Association, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But he's got such a great heart and really putting his focus in the right place. So I'm super excited to have him on today's show. So thanks so much for being here, Ryan. Oops, let me... Sorry, I think it was on mute. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, pleasure
to
join.
Cool.
Sorry about that.
Nice. No, I think it was actually my end. I appreciate you being here. And so, share a little bit about your upbringing, kind of like what you've studied and your areas of expertise, and then ultimately what introduced you or how were you led up to industrial hemp?
Absolutely. My pleasure. So I'm originally from California, but grew up, had the privilege to grow up in many places around the United States, one of those being in Northern Virginia outside of our nation's capital, and had the experience of visiting our original forefathers' homes of Monticello and Mount Vernon, and was originally introduced to hemp as, the historical fiber that was used for canvas, for rigging, for sails and ships in colonial times, and was familiar with that. And I actually went to Langley High School and was right there in the, very close to D.C., and had a close relationship early on with cannabis. Gotten some, it was very frowned upon, no interest in hemp even back in the early 2000s. And I had a early education, and funny enough, people told me to stay away from cannabis. It would take me nowhere, and look at where it is now. So it's definitely been a big turn within our lifetimes as far as the outlook and perspective on cannabis and hemp. But I originally was very enamored with cannabis, and found myself at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and there was a lot of cannabis extraction and products being made on the other side of the plant, which is what led to Colorado becoming a leader in the industrial hemp CBD side originally. But that knowledge I brought back, and I actually ended up graduating from James Madison University in Virginia. And that year that I came back to that school, they were doing a hemp trial program, and I was president of the entrepreneurship club, and I got involved in this hemp program, and I had the opportunity to pitch some people on a hemp processing company, and began some gentlemen from the area were interested in pursuing it themselves, and I was able to team up with these guys, and we were able to go around some of the world and see what hemp fiber processing supply chains look like in other parts of the globe, and took that information, and we were looking to apply it there in Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, but we were a little early to the game, and hemp was still under the 2014 Farm Bill and was just for research purposes, and you couldn't actually grow it for profit and process it at the scale we were looking to do. And that is where I found myself in a stagnant position and ended up taking my skills and abilities over to Sunstrand in Kentucky. And that is kind of where the hemp did really take off with the 2018 Farm Bill. And things did get really exciting with the possibility of large-scale fiber. And as you know, many people are very aware, there was a great divergence of interest and into the extraction and CBD and all the other exciting potentials of the flower and cannabinoid and floral part of the hemp plant, especially here in places like Colorado and Kentucky. But that kind of, you know, boomed and busted. Now there's back to being a significant interest in hemp fiber, which is awesome, and more, you know, national security interests than ever as before, because we have a need for domestic reliable supply chains. So it seems like just all things leading towards this, and you know, in my brief lifetime here, lots of things have brought me towards this space. But that all said, I mean, as far as my direct education, I graduated from James Madison University, specialized or majored in entrepreneurship and innovation, and have used that course to keep myself working in hemp, which is a blessing.
Yeah.
There hasn't been so many opportunities, and it's you know, kind of a tough place to find opportunities to pursue right now, as everything's so new.
Yeah, no, it's a burgeoning industry, and there's tremendous demand, tremendous need for such a product, with companies being dependent on petrochemical and lumber products these days, and with, you know, deforestation and all of the toxic methods for pillaging petroleum. It's essential for our humanity. It's essential for our life. So the work you're doing is you know, takes humility, because and patience. You know, like the hemp plant, it's bending and flexible. So it you know, it inspires us, I think, in that way as hemprepreneurs. We're kind of standing for the plant, even though it's been demonized and criticized and made illegal and all that. So nonetheless, you know, hemp has had a tremendous history, and I think has an even brighter and amazing future. What are some of your favorite historical facts that you've? I mean, obviously you lived in the place where our forefathers grew hemp, and so you got a really intimate understanding of George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, how they grew hemp and worked with hemp. Or it could be any world history fact. What are some of your favorites?
Certainly. Yeah, well, I'd say the most interesting to me, people always, you know, ask about the applications of hemp. I think it's telling and just, you know, an obvious indication of its uses that hemp was the largest cash crop in the world for many thousands of years. It's been, you know, documented as being interwoven into many cultures, from Asia to European to here in the United States, and all over outside of that. But I'd say, as far as back to the Northern Virginia neck of the woods, one of my favorite tidbits of hemp historical facts is regarding Leicester Dewey, the crop scientist for the USDA, who back in 1913 worked on the USDA yearbook program, and they did a whole special on all the capabilities and, you know, the impressive growth of industrial hemp varieties that they had been developing. And they were doing government-funded hemp fiber trials on a farm called Arlington Farms in Northern Virginia that was previously owned by 1913. I do believe that's the year that they were working on this USD yearbook. But that's where they were doing the planting of some hemp on a particular farm called Arlington Farms, and it was, I believe, the last of that time period, the last government-funded hemp project of any sort. But that farm where the crop was grown was was after that, not used for any more farm programs of the USDA. It was leveled. Obviously, Northern Virginia is now a very metropolitan area. There's not many farms in that area at all. But this one in particular was leveled and built on by the United States government, and it is the current location of the U.S. Pentagon. And so it was a direct replacement of our agricultural future with our current one, which is probably and most likely led by a industrial complex we would not be so fond of if we saw the inner workings of.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. But that's all. That's just, it's amazing that we had been on this course and trajectory so recently in our history, and we find ourselves almost starting fresh, but it's not really the case.
Mm-hmm. Well, wouldn't you say the U.S. government funded the Hemp for Victory campaign? The U.S. Department of Ag put out that video. I mean, you could. That could
I don't think they were studying it though.
Yeah, it was more like
it wasn't as much research as it was. They knew exactly that it was necessary and how to grow it, and that's even a more telling that they only a great historical fact or story is that of the Hemp for Victory campaign, and they shipped out and grew over 300,000 acres of hemp in 2 years, and much of the ditchweed that farmers are relying on for genetics today is ditchweed from those train cars that was delivering hemp to the farms in Illinois and Wisconsin that grew the hemp for that war effort. And then after the Hemp for Victory campaign was closed off, they went back to their, and that's the weird thing about hemp laws that has been very, I wasn't here in the 50s and 60s to challenge these things, but it's always been very wishy-washy around the actual, legality of hemp. There's been the Marijuana Tax Act and things of that nature that have made it very difficult to grow hemp, but maybe not made it illegal. And throughout all the hemp laws of the recent U.S., courts and that they put out, there's always been an exemption for mature hemp stalks. So theoretically, you could bring in mature hemp stalks and process them, and there's no issue with that. And that's still to this day. So it's very, there's almost a kind of a strategy, it seems like, from the government. If they made things outright illegal, it almost inspires U.S. citizens to pursue it. But if you make it very difficult, that's probably a better way to stop it from happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it seems the more legalized it becomes, the more difficult. It's a challenging world to operate for sure. But you're specifically helping with processing. Obviously farmers are willing to invest their land and their expertise, and investors are willing to put money up for seed to get to those farmers per se that are going to grow the hemp to be processed and all that. So can we get a little into the hemp fiber supply chain, today, and give us like a 30,000-foot perspective of what you're seeing and maybe where we're headed in the next 3 years?
I will certainly give it my best. I don't have obviously I hope that there's a whirlwind of investment and excitement, and I'm underestimating where, potential acreage could be and such. But I believe, one thing that's makes hemp different than tech or any other type of industry that can move at, incredible pace is that it's limited by its cultural based. We're waiting on a crop every year, and so things you kind of have only one move a year. It's like a very slow game as far as building a business in terms of sourcing material. You can definitely innovate and make new things and develop new products, but as far as how much the industry is going to grow, it's very limited by the seasonality of, a lot of places can only grow hemp between May and September. So it's only got one season in many locations. So that is a limit, but that is, what I think opens up the ability for more acres, and what does open up that need for more process or ability to process is more processing facilities. And like you said, there's certainly enough acres in the United States to facilitate much more hemp to be grown, and there's definitely a market and demand for these products. There's definitely a lot of lack of clarity in many parts of the country on exactly what will grow and how much of it, will be yielded per acre, and the best way to contract, and, standard operating procedures with farmers, especially down in like the southeast in the southern Carolinas and Georgia and stuff where it's highly humid. Makes it tough or they just haven't found, or they probably found, they just haven't had lots of years of experimenting and trials with varieties that were, grown in those areas. Places that have already seen lots of trial programs and they've figured out which genetics work. The only limitation that I see is processing capacity, and there's a lot of lack of know-how from fiber processors. Or from people who want to be fiber processors. It's an industry that doesn't have much translation to other industries in the United States as cannabinoid extraction and grain production does. Like grain processing is very similar to flax or to sunflowers and there's extraction, oil presses, all that equipment's very similar. And if you're transitioning from sunflowers to hemp, you already have a lot of knowledge. Same thing with either high THC extraction going into CBD extraction or extracting lavender and getting into extraction. A lot of the same equipment, a lot of the same principles, but there's not much stuff, and there really isn't any industry in the United States because we don't really have much flax processing. So there's no real industry that translates well over to fiber processing. So it's a very specialized and unique and underdeveloped part of the hemp world, and something that the United States has been very not involved in for decades, and so we don't have anyone to lean on. And we're looking at patents from the early 1900s. It's quite an exciting untouched space. I wouldn't say untouched, but lots of opportunity to improve how it's being done, for sure.
So can you give us an idea of a supply chain, or at least a processing plant? If let's say a big money person was at the table and they're like, I believe in this, I have land and I want to set up a hemp fiber processing plant. Tell me what kind of equipment would I need to acquire, and
sure,
because obviously it's a biggest challenge is the money. So let's say the money's there and the vision's there, people believe, what obviously, and there's tons of different ancillary products. So give us an idea of what that machine looks like.
Absolutely. So there's kind of three things that you need to have a go-to-market strategy with in terms of hemp fiber processing. You're going to need your raw material supply. So you got to have a farm program. You need to know what kind of seeds, or what kind of cultivar you're going to grow and how to turn that into a viable feedstock for your processing. And your second thing you need is your processing center to take that raw feedstock and turn it into a sellable product. And then the third thing you need is sales, a way to take that finished product and put it out in the market and make money and continue this cycle of paying your farmer and creating product and selling it and taking that money and paying it. So that's the three. If you don't have all three, that's kind of where even if you had all the money to build a processing center, there's still more expense because you're going to have to grow the hemp. Unless you're in a really ideal place in the country where hemp just happens to be around, you're probably going to have to instigate getting that hemp grown. But as far as the equipment, there's same thing, three main things in a fiber processing center. Unless you're doing it by hand, there's not enough fiber processing, diction and words. There's not a Western processing style or something, but there's definitely different ways to process fiber, and there's a huge, range in the budget of where you can start at and where you can get to as far as how automated the process is and how large the throughput being the amount of material you can put in and how much clean material is coming out the back end. And kind of that's where the price range varies. And there's many different technologies, some, very simple and rudimentary, some more big equipment and using different principles and different means of separating the fiber from the herd. But as far as the price range, go anywhere from in the high hundreds of thousands, 100,000 plus for a very rudimentary line of equipment, up to in the millions to tens of millions for a high throughput commercial fiber processing line. But running these numbers, say on an average size system, like running 2 tons of material an hour, so investing in a system that would take up 2 tons. So if a bale weighed 1,000 pounds, it could do 2 of those bales an hour. And that's some of these systems that the throughput maybe is not limited by what the system could do, but by if you have 2 tons of material coming out the end of the system, you have a lot of bags to fill, and you have a lot of material to move around. So the logistics of the line can sometimes not be limited by actually how much material the system can eat, but how much material you can safely
organize on the back
in
end,
and out of it. Exactly. Right. But that is so running this off of, say, a 2 ton an hour system, you are, and this is great, something to understand too about why the hemp space is so limited and why people aren't just launching products every day, because it's not like petroleum and it's not like these other natural materials that we can just dig more out of the earth or something. We have to create this stuff from scratch. So if none is made, none can be sold. But back to the numbers, if you're doing 2 tons per hour, say in a regular year, you're working 260 days a year, you're realistically 8-hour days, so you're running this machine for 6 hours or so a day. So you're doing like 2,080 times 2, 4,000, a little over 4,000 tons a year, something like 4,100 tons a year of material, and that is like a little over 8 million pounds of material. And so you will, as far as to raise 4,000 acres or tons, or 4,000 tons of material, if you're getting a conservative estimate on, if you're doing a fiber variety, usually you should be able to get up to 4 or more tons, hopefully, per acre. But our safe conservative number would be like 2 tons an acre. You would need something like 2,000 acres, a little over that, 2,080 something acres, to produce 4,160 tons of material to sufficiently run a system like this for a year. And like I said, you'll be making like 8,000 or 8 million, some 300,000 pounds of material. If you do it like 75% herd, so 20% fiber, 5% waste, you're making like 6 million something pounds of herd and 1 million, little under 2 million pounds of fiber. And that's your entire, all you got. But that is, so realistically, you need like a 2 ton an acre system, or 2 ton per hour system, and like a little over 2,000 acres of land, and the seed. So if you're getting seed at like whatever it would be, like 3, 5, safely like 5 to 7 pounds, say 5 pounds, or $5 a pound, and you're paying your farmer like $200 a ton, you would, you have to budget for that farm program, which is like something like 2 million, or like a 1.5 million, and then you have to do the processing center, which you have to pay for a building and stuff like that. So, and then the equipment on top of that, so to like something around the $2 million range, and then you got to operate this system, so something to budget for operating capital. So I'd safely say, like, to run a system like that, and to have the farm program, and to make sure you have enough buffer to safely pay employees and compensate your farm people and stuff, you'd need $5-6 million, and could generate revenue of like $3-4 million within the first year just on that. And that's, as far as an agricultural turnaround, 1.5 year break even is pretty unreal, but that's all speculative, just trying to put numbers to estimate what that would look like.
Yeah, and wouldn't you have to consider the proximity of the manufacturing plant? Like, how many people can you serve within a certain geographic area with this one processing plant, right? Like on an ongoing basis. Because obviously one of the biggest challenges with the supply chain is distribution costs. So if a plant is, if a group is going to invest in putting together a manufacturing plant, but there's not enough demand within that region to ongoingly, or a product that can be manufactured in that region, you know, it's whether it's a paper product or a composite product, plastics, could be a building material, but it sounds like a company that has a finished product that has enough capital or, you know, revenue to put into their own vertically integrated operation, like would there be a plant, like a hemp fiber processing plant, that could have an output of, say, you know, 12 or 10 different like grades, or like what you know, would there be like a very narrow set of options as far as the output for a particular plant, if you know what I'm saying? Or is it
Sure. It definitely, you know, when you do have fiber and herd coming out, it's not all looking the exact same. Certainly, you know, you have to separate and specify and refine to get it as uniform into different, you know, classes as possible, that everything doesn't look the exact same or come out the exact same size. But that definitely falls on processors. That's when the third part of that, very key, you know, when looking to set up a fiber processing facility, is having the markets. And there's definitely, you know, as we talk about all the time, tons of uses for these materials. And there are definitely applications for every size and particle distribution of hemp, either fiber or herd, but definitely takes a level of acumen in the space to be able to access those markets, or also to operate your system all the way through to the farm program at the proficiency that it needs to be to keep your material consistent enough to have continued demand, which is, you know, a struggle lots of processors have around the world, just because hemp is a natural material and it's very hard to maintain consistency on its output. But that is, you know, I'd say there is definitely, I would recommend and see the future of hemp being vertical integration and domestic local supply chains. That's like, you know, the hopes, the optimized plan for it. But that is, you know, as it develops, might be a little different, because people will need to break down the supply chain and, you know, work on specifically developing a product and getting it to market and raising capital around that before they can build back into the supply chain. And it's definitely not simple. I mean, nothing in getting into farming is not simple. I mean, that's about to the extent it goes to, if you're going to be selecting cultivars and telling people how you need the crop grown. It does get pretty it's an overwhelming vertical to step into, especially with how new it is. But I think there'll be more potentially like agreements between you know, processing groups and people with products, or somebody with a certain need, to you know, come up with an agreement that they'll buy X amount of fiber and be able to get more consistency in their supply chain. But that is to be seen how that will develop. It's also very typical, you know, people that have spent all the time and resources and effort to get to the point of having a processing facility often don't want to sell commodity goods. You know, they don't want to sell their fiber and herd at base value. They want to upgrade the value of the materials naturally, just as a business move. And it makes most sense to do that closest to the processing facility. So I think we'll continue to see processors also feeling out which markets are the most consistent, and then building verticals themselves to the market.
Exactly.
But that said, there'll always be little amounts of waste or you know, byproducts, either fines or fiber that's too long that can't be used for certain applications, that people will, once they have enough of it, find other applications, I'm sure, to fulfill in the market.
Well, speaking of all the different applications, what do you think is the most important use for hemp right now on the planet? Like with, regard to pollution and the destruction of our environment, like what hemp product would solve some of the biggest problems on the planet, do you think, right now?
Certainly. Yeah, I think I'm very enamored with the idea of hemp building materials and replacing our built environment with a much less toxic, much more natural material like hemp and other materials like lime and things of that nature, and looking at the pie graph of how much impact certain industries have on the world. Construction is one of the most prolific impacts, using tons of resources, and we surround ourselves with these not so healthy resources sometimes. So that is where I'd like to focus. It's also something that just has such a large some people don't realize how small some markets are. For example, like textiles. If you look at, a big company replacing their fall line with hemp textiles, the impact of that compared to building thousands of homes out of a new carbon sequestering material is definitely, it's crazy how little hemp can be used in a very highly recognized product, and then how the opposite is true, where you could see hemp disappear by the thousands and thousands of tons into stuff that you would never even realize it's being used for. So I think that building, and that extends to using it for all sorts of construction, for using it for retaining our sound barrier walls on the side of the highway, and huge, things that, again, could just absorb so much, which is now used, using concrete and other materials that we could see being used with hemp. That, and also, for agricultural or erosion control, large erosion mat type materials and such. But that, and then, one thing that's not been explored too much with hemp that, we know we can do just because the science of it is break it down. You can, just like we do with trees, that's how we make paper and specialty sweeteners and all sorts of stuff. They take, the plant matter and they dissolve it. You break it down into its core components and then rebuild those things into new materials and products. And that's something that you can absolutely do with hemp once there's viable production and processing capacity. We do need to separate the hurd and fiber still, because they're made up of different compounds and components. But for example, hurd, you can, in very much the same way that other companies have figured out how to take a eucalyptus tree and break it down into its core components and isolate that cellulose and turn it into a healthy lyocell, or I shouldn't say healthy, but eco-conscious and sustainable supply chain lyocell called Tencel. They can do similar processes, or there's the capability to do similar things with hemp. And my partner, actually, the gentleman that I started HempVentures with, John Lupian, he's been in hemp longer than most, and he is a wealth of knowledge in the space, and he actually is pioneering these processes and has been working on this dissolution process for quite some time. But one of the key missing pieces is a whole lot of hemp.
Right. So speaking of what's missing, I mean, where are some of the biggest opportunities right now as far as hemp fiber? Obviously, you mentioned the biggest problem, which I'm 100% on the same page, is our homes. Not only is, like you're saying, that the construction and building industry contributing to some of the greatest amounts of toxins and pollution going into the environment, just, with all the transportation, but also the building materials themselves. But then we're living in those toxic buildings, and then we're getting sick. So it's like a double whammy. But then the fact that it sequesters the carbon, in our homes, just it's like a triple win. But as far as finished products on the market, what do you see as some of the biggest opportunities that people could start creating products for?
Absolutely. There are and I hear it all the time, because people want to put up large-scale campuses and they want to do R&D on hemp and figure out what it can be used for. There's, one really great place to look for the potential future of the U.S. hemp market is other hemp markets around the world, because they've been further developed and have had the chance to figure out, what hemp is really good at and what places in the market really like hemp materials. One of those is in Europe already, construction. And one product that in particular we're already seeing take hold here in the United States, and domestic production coming online here soon, is for bat fiber insulation replacement. So using the hemp fiber as an insulation material, and they're using different thicknesses for different applications, even using thin insulation for compostable packaging and stuff like that. But I'd say there's definitely some low-hanging fruit on the fiber side, grow mats and insulation, bat fiber insulation. That's certainly a good product that there's tons of market space to be replaced with a more sustainable and eco-friendly option. On the herd side, certainly. Yeah, on the herd side, there is animal bedding and building grade herd for hemp lime construction. And so both of those, all of those four products are something that we see imported heavily into the United States, or previously being imported heavily. And, a lot of that's entrepreneurs here in the United States feeling out the market and seeing if there is enough consistent demand to justify domestic production. And now we're kind of seeing that transition out of somewhat necessity as shipment prices keep going up, and it doesn't make as much economic sense to import things. We have a push to bring those supply chains local anyways, but there's also the advantage of shipping and logistics, and herd is really not a great product to ship because it doesn't compress very much at all, and so it's like shipping styrofoam. And so that is what we will hopefully see. But yeah, those are kind of very known, needed. If there were more supply, there would be more use of it, guaranteed, and it would probably spur more innovation. But that is kind of stuff that's very, the market's very proven out here, guaranteed. And then, obviously there's interest in high quality hemp fiber textiles and such, but there isn't much of the downstream processing capabilities here in the United States, which is, again, another reason why my partner John has been pursuing a alternative to a hemp fiber that wouldn't require wet processing and those steps that take kind of the environmental benefits of hemp out of it a little bit if it requires tons of water and produces toxic effluent and all that kind of stuff. That's not, what the goal of switching out hemp for textiles was. So hopefully there's a cleaner alternative that can be found. But that is something that's really, something that people don't take into account a lot is how we're processing fiber a little bit differently than they do in some parts of the world, particularly like where we get our hemp from typically. It's grown on a much smaller scale. We're taking this right to the American large scale ag scene. We're processing hemp from bales, round or square baled hemp. And in a lot of places in the world, they cut their hemp by hand or very carefully and keep it all oriented. And they strip the fibers. They don't blast them off or anything. They strip them while the plant's still green even. And they do a lot of this stuff by hand, very labor intensive. And that's just something that we don't have, the cultural knowledge and expertise in, and it would be very tough, I believe, to convince American large-scale agricultural landowners to get out and start cutting their hemp by hand and stripping it and such.
And then people wonder why this product is so expensive. It's a very niche market, but if we do capitalize or invest in this industry, we can have it available to more people at a more affordable rate, so.
Absolutely.
Not to take away the jobs of these small communities, because they'll still be able to serve their communities. But obviously, investing in an output of a high quality hemp textile grade fiber is much different than, say, a basic processing facility that will just, say, put out hemp hurd for building materials and animal bedding, and then some bast fiber that could be used for any non-woven applications. Just real basic outputs, with bast fiber less than, say, 3 inches or something. So one of the big, because I get people that call and they say, oh, I want to invest in a textile manufacturing plant. And it's like, okay, like, do you really? So as far as that, or, if somebody, if somebody wanted to, gosh, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here. But anyway, I'll go on to my
supply
next
chain.
question.
They wanted to go from crop to shop with the textiles.
Right. Yeah. So because you said anywhere from 100,000 or 300,000 all the way up to tens of millions. I guess is I don't know what that question was. I apologize. It's kind of awkward, but
no worries. I think and just to comment on that, there's so many steps. I don't think anyone realistically in the near term is going to be taking stuff all the way from a grown fiber or from the seed to a finished T-shirt. If anything, that'll be pretty. To prove it's possible, or to just show the supply chain. But doing that at scale probably won't make sense. That's why they don't do that in other industries. You become specialized in different pieces of the supply chain. I think farmers will definitely be able to grow better hemp quicker than someone just getting into agriculture. But I think that a lot of that stuff will continue to be spread out, and we're going to continue to see supply chains either globally or around the United States, as there's only some services available in some areas, and that'll continue to hopefully grow. But I don't think it's at this point really that viable to look at investing in a whole crop to shop textile facility. That's just I would start off with getting fabric and proving out the hemp market, although I think it's pretty proven out, but would look at maybe just sourcing the yarn, and there's people in the Carolinas working on making hemp yarn or hemp wool blends. But yeah, that's I'd bite off a piece at a time.
Totally. So how based on your research and playing around with hemp fibers, how would you say they compare to other natural fibers or synthetic fibers, and how they perform, or their makeup or structure?
Sure. Yeah. Well, hemp is well known for it's a hollow fiber, so it allows air to pass through it, which allows it to breathe, which makes it a natural. It makes it resistant naturally to mold buildup and to it's not a good environment for bacteria to grow. So they say it's like an antibacterial fiber by nature. It's not actually it doesn't fight bacteria. If you put it in a nasty place and wrinkled it up and made it wet, stuff will grow on it. But the way that the fibers allow air to pass through it makes it very naturally bacterial resistant. And so that's why they use it for socks and undergarments and in baby clothing and in hospital wear and such, because of its properties in that regard. Outside of that, it doesn't obviously create microplastics or have any toxic chemical makeup in it. It's not made out of old plastic bottles or something, so you're not having to worry about what other chemicals are in your fiber, and it's not breaking down and creating microplastics, which is something that gets into our air and in our systems, and we eat it and breathe it, and so that's an extremely beneficial piece of it. But it also performs incredibly well. It's got very high vibrational dampening capabilities. That's why they use it. Compressed hemp panels in automotive vehicles and for sound absorption panels, and that's what gives it its great thermal regulation. Thermal and acoustic insulation. It's very impressive in its capabilities there. As far as compared to other natural fibers, it's quite comparable to like flax or other bast fibers. One of the greatest things about hemp, like flax and other natural fibers are incredible as well. Sometimes work even better than 100% hemp things when you blend two fibers together, because you get the advantages of both of them, and different fibers hold together better. But I would say that hemp, its unique thing that makes it so cool compared to all the other fibers and such is that hemp can be grown all around the world, and it's one of the most productive, and it's also the only one that governments around the world fear and have made illegal. So it's like got this great story behind it, but I think we'll continue to see, and there's an interest in flax and other natural fibers like kanaf and jute more and more as we kind of see the effects of these polyester fibers, that they deteriorate quickly. They have negative health effects. They might not be good to have on your skin. Although science isn't proven, probably on purpose. But that is one of the definitely clear. It's highly durable, well known, and it's can become through mechanical and some chemical treatments very, very soft, and I kind of think we're just beginning to see that. I have lots of hemp clothing that people all the time, can't believe it's hemp because they're used to hemp being canvas-like material, which ironically the word canvas comes from the same root as the word cannabis, because all things canvas used to be made from the versatile hemp plant. But that is, I would say all that, and one of the other awesome factors of it is that you're wearing a plant. So the qualities that the plant used the fiber for, as this was the skin of the plant originally, that cool hemp clothes was clothes for a plant, which is pretty awesome. But that gives it natural abilities, like it is resistant to UV light, and it's definitely more so than other fibers like cotton and such. And something to compare it to, the most famous fiber here in the United States and our most prevalent natural fiber is cotton. We're some of the world's best fiber processors, but we chose cotton. That is, cotton plant is actually the cotton fibers are pure cellulosic puffs that are intended to help the seed travel to a new location and plant itself. And we've mutated the cotton plant to create a giant puff and for the seeds to not blow away. But that is, where the fiber comes from. So this little tiny stick, grows out of the ground and produces a little puff that was meant to one-time use, was meant to send the seed off to a new field. It's its distribution of seed method. But that is nothing compared to the awesome plant armor that the hemp plant wears for 120 days and then leaves for you to wear yourself. So I think there's quite a, it's just a much more robust fiber due to what the plant uses it for.
I love that. Yeah, I'm a wordsmith, and I love seeing those parallels. The skin of the hemp plant becomes our skin, our makeup, our hempen royal regalia to protect us from the UV rays. That's awesome.
I agree. There's a great guy out in California, Hemp Zoo, that calls it hemp armor, and I always think about that, Jason Russell.
Yeah, love Jason. He's a great guy. So you're a hemp entrepreneur like Jason, like myself, and you've studied entrepreneurship. I mean, that's super cool in school. So you have an open mind to the idea of sales and making money and providing a service to the world. And the fact that you've hooked up with hemp is just like, the coolest thing ever. So what sort of things are you currently doing to market HempVentures and kind of get the word about your guys' consulting services and how you're hemp-powering the world?
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate that. And, yeah, it's definitely just to talk on, like, I want everyone to know about this opportunity. I think this is the not only purpose of the creation of the United States, but the greatest opportunity in our nation's history. We're kind of at a tipping point of deciding or redeciding our purpose, I think, as a nation, and the direction we're going to take to build our future. There's just lots of young people that would like to see it be a little different, and I think this is, I've never seen so much excitement around a plant. It's quite a unique, a very unique opportunity. Never seen something like this be re-legalized, and it's like nothing else. It's like if we just discovered a plant that can do all that timber, cotton, and petrochemicals can do, and in a fraction of the time, and everyone can have a piece of it. It's like they've been saving this one for us or something. I do see it as an yes,
yeah.
Please.
Well, I was just, it kind of brought up this idea of, a part of me thought, man, what if the world could adopt hemp as the essential solution for our food, shelter, and clothing, etc., as quickly as the world adopted wearing masks? Like, whatever campaign was put together to convince people of that, like, can we just apply that to utilizing hemp? I think, like, whoever is running that marketing campaign, I think that's what we need for hemp.
That's funny. Well, I unfortunately, I tell people all the time, it's the government that took hemp away in the first place, so the game is a little rigged. So I'd say get with your friends. Yeah. Get with the people you trust. Let's change the world one person at a time, because it ain't going to be, we're not going to give
it the government top down.
Yeah. So, but all that said, I do. I want to highlight too. I think this is the greatest opportunity in American history. Like, it is so, and it's so like quiet rumbling. It's like when people come aware of it, they're shocked at the scope of what this could mean, and so I really hope that there's nothing that happens that sends it in the wrong direction again, kind of like CBD did. And I think there's people that still to this day have, the hopes that hemp doesn't revitalize and it doesn't inspire the collective and remind Americans about why we started this place in the first place, and what our life and liberties are being attacked, and the fact that we're celebrating that we can grow the plant is quite confusing to me, to be honest. I don't know how we got in the state of letting our government decide what we can and cannot grow to begin with. So I think we need to really shift back. But as far as the hempreneuring and how I get the word out there about HempVentures, I definitely we're at a lot of hemp conferences and such. One thing that kind of makes it tough for us to sell these fiber processing systems is that there's not that much fiber being grown. And so we are, kind of where people go to, like, last step once they figured out where they're going to grow and get hemp growing. And oftentimes they've explored other smaller fiber processing solutions. It is kind of tough to jump in at a large-scale system with thousands of acres coming online, and we are working to help that process a little bit to create a smaller system so that we can help people get them, processing at a lower capacity and a lower price point. And then on top of that, creating, we do advise on varieties and helping find the right seed suppliers and all that stuff for free, and help people get an idea of what investing in a fiber processing facility looks like. But one of the main things we're doing is looking to put our own processing facilities out there. We also too talk to tons of people. The hemp's got a dual-edged sword. It's so inspiring, but it also, people immediately just say, like, I want to start a fiber processing facility, without quite considering the complexity of an operation like that. And it's going to be much easier to sell these things and much easier to sell people on the idea of this supply chain if we go out there and execute on it ourselves and really show and trace, and have successful farmers with successful stories, it will tell a much better story than kind of some of the stuff we've seen. There's been some processing machines that have gone out into the world and not performed as described, and really set people, back and scare investors off, and that is can't afford much more of that here in the hemp space. So hopefully, got some good stories coming to the market.
Exactly. Yeah, and there are optimistic people out there that have a vision and money to invest. So if they wanted to get a hold of you, maybe somebody that owns some land and they want to start farming the hemp, or even team up with a group of people, someone maybe want to get into the processing and they've got farmers, they can link up with you. Where's the best place they can find you, or get some advice?
Yeah, well, like you said, our website, HempVentures.org, and you can reach myself at my email there, Ryan, RYAN, at HempVentures.org, or my phone number, 703-581-4456. Be happy to, I have like a little, you can schedule a consultation call there on the website as well, just to learn a little bit more about these supply chains and these systems and how we can engage. And that's kind of, like I was saying too, one thing we're really looking to do is create kind of that, more seamless process on that. So it's not as, right now we just sell these systems, and it's pretty unapproachable. It's hard we'd like to provide more of a thorough service where we come in and help with the farm side of things, getting contracts, right, and help run the system and help guarantee the materials get to market, because just leaving someone hanging with a system is a tough, a lot of people look at it and say we'd like a little bit more help than that. And HempVentures, we have hopes to run systems and to see the production of those materials all the way through to finished products. And again, there's so many people with the same hopes and goals, and I think it's going to be a collective effort, and tons of processing facilities coming online here soon. But as once there's 10, I think things happen to, double. Typically, if you have 2, there'll be 4, and then when there's 10, you'll get 20. Things move at a quicker rate when there's more people getting eyes on it, more assurance in the market, larger contracts needing to be met. So we just hope we're well positioned to help keep growing things, and there'll be need. And that's not one thing we touched on already, but I think there's tons of people here in the United States who are consistently, they want to start up fiber processing, but they want tried and true and proven systems. And I hate to break it to everybody, but hemp was legalized 3 years ago, and it's just not going to exist. You're not going to get a display case like you get for a tractor with all the info on the systems and everything, because they're all brand new, and a lot of it's being developed right now, but they're not going to have years of runtime. Or I wouldn't get into hemp if you want something tried and true and proven, because it's a brand new industry. That's all the excitement about it. But that is kind of one thing that's a miss. Farmers are very used to lots of years of experience behind the equipment they buy and such, and that is another reason why we'd like to come in and prove out the efficacy of it as well, because it's a hard sell, and we understand that for sure as it being brand new, but that's why you go out and do it yourself.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that. It sounds like what you guys can offer with HempVentures is not basically the 3 things that you had mentioned at the beginning of starting out with good seed stock, really picking genetics that are going to be ideal for that part of the world, wherever they're wanting to grow, and for whatever their goals are with the end product. So choosing the right seed, and then coming up with a sellable product, getting your machines dialed into the point where you can have a consistent, steady supply of a product. And then third, the sales and distribution chain, essentially, a way to market or get that product to the market. And if you've got those 3 pieces, which it sounds like you guys can help people with, you don't want to just leave them hanging. That's super valuable. And and I look forward to working with you on, finding these people, because it's definitely where our heart's at, and we want to see these hemp houses and plastic cars like yesterday. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, you as well, Tyler, and I appreciate the time very much. And feel free to come back with any questions anytime, and look forward to working with you as well.
Yeah, as a parting question, what are you currently doing with the U.S. Hemp Building Association, and how can people get more involved there?
Yeah, well, I am on the board of the U.S. HBA, and I run the supply chain committee, and we are currently, they actually just a few weeks ago in New York, they got the proposal RB 316-22 for the International Residential Code passed, which is the first step towards ICC, which is the International Code Council, formally adopting hempcrete as they officially recognized building material, which would streamline lots of building projects, make it so that hemp lime is in an international construction code like section, so that anybody that does these approvals or gives out permits could refer to that. So that's a huge accomplishment by the USHBA. Myself personally, I've been working on a few of the things under the resources tab. If you go to ushba.org, there is a map of not all of them, but a lot of the hemp structures that have been built in the United States. And then there's also a map under that called a supply chain map that highlights the hemp supply chain, particular to the building industry, and shows you where you can find hemp building supplies or hemp suppliers of construction grade materials, and the likes of those sorts. But that is, again, the U.S. Hemp Building Association at the ushba.org, and that's a great organization that I am privileged to be on the board of and helping push that part of the hemp space forward.
For sure, yeah. Definitely appreciate the work that you all are doing there. It's essential and very much appreciated. I did actually think of one last question that kind of came up as you were saying hemp lime and hempcrete. A lot of people immediately think of concrete when they think of hempcrete, and some folks refer to it as hemp lime. Can you just kind of clarify that for people that are interested in the building aspect and what that means and what it is referred to as?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. I think there's still an applicable name use for hempcrete. There's some applications, like most recently I was on the building site of a privacy wall, and they actually did mix Portland concrete and put hemp into it as a filler, and it makes a great textured concrete wall with hemp in it, and that's a better application for the word hempcrete. But just as you were saying, hempcrete, as it's been known, or hemp lime, is a combination of hydrated lime and hurd, the inner woody core of the hemp plant, and water. And what happens is that lime is going to be turned back into stone, but as you mix them all together, that viscous lime mixture actually soaks into the hurd and essentially petrifies the hurd, turns it into a stone. And that's where that hempcrete misnomer or name has come from, is because the hurd almost feels like it turns into concrete, but it definitely is misleading, as hempcrete or a hemp lime blend of a traditional hemp lime and water blend is not load bearing and is not a direct replacement for concrete in really any capacity. You wouldn't want to use it in the same ways that you use concrete, so it's not good for sidewalks, it's not good for foundation of a house and such. But the hemp lime is probably a much more fitting name, as it's a blend of hemp and lime. There are some hemp lime companies or building construction companies that kind of claim that name or have been using it for a long time, and I don't know if it's something that's even debated anymore, but I think that's it's just, hopefully there's not as much of a misnomer, but even calling it like a hemp lime blend is a good way to refer. But definitely hempcrete has created a little bit of a misnomer and misled people about the function of the material. But there's great other hemp building products that are coming online, precast blocks that'll have cool branded names that'll make it, maybe more clear their function and their application. And then there's prefab panels, and then companies like Americhamps and Cameron McIntosh that are working with spray systems, the E-Reezy, so they're spraying, doing spray cast. But that all said, hemp typically is an insulation system, and that's another thing Cameron kind of has pioneered, is referring to himself as an insulation installer, which is much more, we're not really building houses out of hemp, we're insulating the homes with hemp. It's still a wood frame house typically, but that is much clearer. I think hemp insulation, obviously someone's already got the name of hempsolation, or something like that, makes a little more sense. And also when you look at a house and you just use your brain, you couldn't, the hemp plant's only so long, unless we were making timber, replacement from it, but that is, there needs to be a structure to the house, but the hemp herd is what's filling in the home. But all that said, that is definitely, that space is primed to grow exponentially, and I think we'll see lots more hemp construction materials coming to the market here very soon, as that is especially with domestication of supplies and all that price fluctuation you've seen in the last 2 years and stuff, there's significant interest to find more sustainable, reliable, and especially domestic and more controllable supply chains to source those materials. But yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Love the hemp lime topic.
Yeah, hemp lime, hempcrete. It's and like you said, the different finished products will also have different kind of branded names or nomenclature, so everyone will get used to it eventually. But as like the final thought, do you have any advice for other hemp-entrepreneurs out there that are maybe just getting started or entering into the hemp world that you'd like to leave them with?
I certainly do. I have unlimited advice, but I will keep it terse. I would say I would definitely, as more of generic entrepreneurial advice, just because the hemp, there's something called the shiny coin syndrome in hemp, where there's so many different directions to go. It can be very overwhelming, but I would say start with a problem and address that, because it's much harder to go the other direction and, say hemp, I'm going to fit this into the market somewhere. I would live your daily life and find a place where a hemp product would be superior and a great fit and compete and not just be a replacement. It's got to have a purpose. You can't just force hemp into the market. So I would say, find a problem and address that problem with a hemp solution. But it's definitely harder to be sitting there with a pile of hemp and saying, how am I going to sell this? So I think it's best to start from that side from the approach, and then outside of that, just know the limitations of the space. There's lots of opportunity in selling cannabinoids because there's tons of them. There's lots of opportunity in selling seed product, grain, or getting contacts to have, there's more supply of that, but don't get into the production of a product that the material doesn't exist. I talk to people all the time who are wanting to make something out of hemp graphene or hemp textiles made in America, and I tell them you got to enter the race of making that thing first before we can sell it. But that is something that definitely exists in the hemp world big time, of people that want to start herd brands and they want to buy all the herd at X price. You're gonna have to go build a processing facility, because that material is not going to exist unless you make it.
Yeah, no, and that's super great advice. I mean, it's actually also the secret recipe to starting with a really good story is start with the problem. The more clear you can be about the problem you're solving, not only, there's actually a couple of expressions. Number one, the amount of money that you can make is directly dependent on how big of a problem you can solve. That might have been Charlie Munger or something. And then the other thought was just the hook to hook people into a story. The bigger the problem, the more descriptive you can be about that and identifying your target market's problem. The more that they're going to want to invest in your product because you can position your product as the solution to their problem. That's like the secret recipe for sales. So thank you for sharing that.
Completely. And just to cap that, our HempVentures, we are doing, the problem we are addressing, we are transformatively simplifying the changing of, I should go read my own mission statement here, but we are, I have it written down here, we're transformatively simplifying the transformation of hemp stocks into viable consumer products. That's what we're doing. But we are creating domestic fiber processing solutions, which is the bottleneck in the supply chain, in our opinion. We have some fiber supplier or decortication manufacturers here in the United States and in Canada, but they're at a throughput and partially problem solving, in my opinion, creating some of the machines necessary, but not a full solution from bale to cleaned product. And selling that whole system is something that really does lack here in the United States, and even, in my opinion, around the world. There are some experts in parts of the world, but it seems like their systems are very specialized and they're not on a
replicatable
goal or they're not out there entrepreneuring. I mean, they're not putting more systems out, and there's a U.S. hemp industry should be backed and based off of U.S. processing equipment. I mean, it's just for replacement parts, for maintenance and care, for price point, for not being held subservient or relying on anybody. That's the whole point. That's why we can't. Dang it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but that is that's the whole. Yeah, that's the goal.
Sweet, man. Well, appreciate your expertise and your tenacity and your focus and moving this industry forward, and look forward to continually making it happen together. And so for tuning into another episode of HempWare Radio. Thanks, Ryan, for being here, and we'll catch you all very soon.
Thank you, Tyler.